A presidency like no other. I'm sure you've heard the news. Donald Trump, a name that has become synonymous with wealth, spectacle, and political upheaval, is once again making headlines. Donald J. Trump, a name synonymous with wealth, spectacle, and more recently, political upheaval. His journey from real estate mogul to the 45th President of the United States was nothing short of extraordinary. Trump's presidency was a time of constant tumult, marked by sharp departures from traditional political norms and a constant barrage of controversy. His supporters lauded his unorthodox approach, his willingness to challenge the status quo, and his fierce advocacy for what he saw as the forgotten American. His detractors, however, viewed him as a threat to democratic institutions, a divisive figure who stoked racial tensions and undermined the very fabric of American society. Love him or loathe him, one thing is undeniable. Trump's presidency left an indelible mark on American history. His brash style and confrontational rhetoric, often delivered through Twitter missives, captivated the nation and the world. Trump's promise to make America great again resonated deeply with a segment of the population disillusioned with the political establishment. He tapped into a vein of economic anxiety and cultural resentment, promising to bring back jobs, secure the border, and restore America's standing in the world. His presidency was a whirlwind of executive orders, legislative battles, and international clashes. From the outset, Trump's presidency was steeped in controversy, beginning with questions surrounding Russian interference in the 2016 election and culminating in his unprecedented second impeachment. Through it all, Trump remained a polarizing figure, commanding unwavering loyalty from his base while facing fierce opposition from his detractors. As he sets his sights on a potential return to the White House in 2024, the question remains, will the showman who once dominated the political stage be able to recapture the spotlight and rewrite the final act of his political career? Domestic and foreign policy. I don't think people understand the full impact of Trump's domestic and foreign policies. From reshaping the tax code to redefining international relations, his tenure was marked by significant and often controversial changes. Trump's approach to governance was heavily influenced by his background as a businessman. He viewed deals, negotiations, and transactions as the primary levers of power. On the domestic front, Trump's signature achievement was the passage of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. This sweeping legislation slashed taxes for corporations and individuals, a move that Republicans argued would stimulate economic growth. He also appointed two conservative justices to the Supreme Court, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, shifting the balance of the court to the right for potentially a generation. Trump made deregulation a cornerstone of his economic agenda, rolling back environmental protections, financial regulations, and consumer safeguards. He argued that these measures were necessary to unleash the American economy, but critics countered that they would harm the environment, jeopardize public health, and disproportionately benefit corporations at the expense of ordinary Americans. In the realm of foreign policy, Trump pursued an America First agenda, prioritizing American interests above all else. He withdrew the United States from the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement, renegotiated the North American Free Trade Agreement, and imposed tariffs on goods from China and other countries. He also took a hard line against Iran, withdrawing from the Iran nuclear deal and imposing sanctions. Trump's foreign policy was marked by unpredictability and a disdain for traditional diplomacy. He cultivated close relationships with authoritarian leaders like Russia's Vladimir Putin and North Korea's Kim Jong-un, while frequently clashing with long-standing American allies. Trump's supporters argued that his unconventional approach yielded tangible results, such as the historic peace accords between Israel and several Arab states. His detractors, however, argued that his actions alienated allies, emboldened adversaries, and damaged America's standing in the world. Controversies and the pandemic response. Exposing the controversies in Trump's pandemic response will blow your mind. From his handling of COVID-19 to the political firestorms that defined his presidency, this chapter delves into the most contentious moments of his term. Trump's presidency was engulfed in a seemingly endless series of controversies, from his inflammatory rhetoric to his alleged ties to Russia. He faced accusations of obstruction of justice stemming from special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. Trump's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, which began during the final year of his presidency, proved to be one of the most consequential and divisive chapters of his term. Trump initially downplayed the severity of the virus, comparing it to the seasonal flu and suggesting that it would magically disappear. He resisted calls for a national lockdown, arguing that such measures would cripple the economy, and he frequently clashed with public health officials who advocated for stricter mitigation measures. As the virus spread rapidly across the country, overwhelming hospitals and claiming hundreds of thousands of lives, Trump's administration struggled to mount an effective response. The pandemic exposed deep divisions in American society, with Trump's supporters largely echoing his dismissive stance toward the virus, while his detractors accused him of negligence and incompetence. The pandemic also had a profound impact on the 2020 election, with Trump's handling of the crisis becoming a central issue in the campaign. Trump's critics argued that his mishandling of the pandemic had cost lives and devastated the economy, while his supporters maintained that he had done the best he could under extraordinary circumstances. The pandemic, along with the economic recession it triggered, ultimately contributed to Trump's defeat in the 2020 election. January 6th and its enduring shadow. I bet you didn't know how one day could change the course of American history forever. Section 4. A Day of Reckoning. January 6th and its enduring shadow. The date, January 6, 2021, will forever be etched in the annals of American history. On that day, a mob of Trump supporters, fueled by his baseless claims of a stolen election, stormed the United States Capitol building in a shocking assault on American democracy. The insurrectionists, some armed with weapons and bearing pro-Trump paraphernalia, overwhelmed Capitol Police and breached the building as lawmakers were in the process of certifying Joe Biden's victory in the presidential election. The images of the Capitol under siege, with rioters smashing windows, scaling walls, and clashing with police, sent shockwaves across the nation and the world. The insurrection marked a dark day for American democracy, a stark reminder of the fragility of democratic institutions and the potential for violence when political divisions spiral out of control. In the aftermath of the attack, Trump faced widespread condemnation for his role in inciting the violence. Critics accused him of inciting the insurrection with his inflammatory rhetoric, in which he repeatedly made baseless claims of a stolen election and urged his supporters to fight like hell to overturn the results. Trump's actions on January 6th led to his second impeachment by the House of Representatives, making him the only president in American history to be impeached twice. While he was acquitted by the Senate, the stain of January 6th continues to loom large over Trump's legacy. The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack has presented evidence suggesting that Trump was aware that his claims of a stolen election were false, and that he took steps to overturn the results of the election. The committee's findings have further fueled calls for Trump to be held accountable for his actions, and the Justice Department is currently conducting its own investigation into Trump's efforts to overturn the election. Trump's post-presidency playbook. I'm sure you've heard the news. Donald Trump is not done with politics. In this chapter, we explore how he has remained a potent force in American politics, his relentless attacks on the Biden administration, and his early announcement for the 2024 presidential election. Despite the shadow of January 6th and the ongoing legal battles he faces, Donald Trump has remained a potent force in American politics. Since leaving office, he has continued to hold rallies, endorse candidates, and use his considerable platform to attack his opponents and promote his agenda. He has remained a vocal critic of the Biden administration, blasting their policies on immigration, the economy, and foreign policy. Trump has also continued to sow doubt about the legitimacy of the 2020 election, repeatedly making false claims about widespread voter fraud. He has used these claims to justify his efforts to overturn the results of the election and to cast himself as the rightful winner. Trump's relentless attacks on the integrity of American elections have undermined public trust in democratic institutions and fueled concerns about the potential for future political violence. Trump's post-presidency activities have been marked by a mix of grievance and ambition. He has used his rallies and media appearances to settle scores with his perceived enemies, both within the Republican Party and beyond. At the same time, he has clearly relished the adulation of his supporters, suggesting that he is not yet done with politics. Trump's decision to announce his candidacy for the 2024 presidential election so early in the election cycle is unusual, but not entirely surprising. By entering the race early, Trump has effectively frozen the Republican primary field, making it difficult for other potential challengers to gain traction. He is clearly betting that his enduring popularity among Republican voters will be enough to carry him to the nomination despite the baggage he carries from his presidency and the events of January 6th.